So welcome to Season 3, Episode 17 of the Me and ADHD podcast. In today's episode, I'm having a conversation about how we can implement reasonable adjustments into our home. For this to happen, though, I have the founder of Your ADHD Home and ND parent herself, Jenefer Livings.
Hello,
Welcome.
I'm very pleased to be here.
I'm glad you're here. Thanks for coming in. That's the first thing, really. Now you're a parent of an ND child, and you are neurodivergent yourself, aren't you?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yes.
So we first talked on TikTok. So I saw one of your posts about your ADHD home, and I reached out and thought it would be a great topic to come on, to speak about on the show. Now there's lots of information out there about how to do reasonable adjustments and support your children at school, and to be fair, adults in the workplace as well. But there's not loads, well, at least there's not as much information about how to make your home a more ADHD friendly, ND sort of friendly sort of place. So that's what you've kind of sort of done.
Yep.
So let's talk about it. What is your ADHD home?
So your ADHD home, you're right, it is about reasonable adjustments, I guess, in the home. That's exactly what it is. And it comes from my whole background story, which to give sort of really briefly. So neurodivergence, I only even came across this as a term or understanding a few years back now, when it was talked about in terms of my daughter, and that was the first time I really heard about it. And at the time, I'd also just started a business, so I was starting to hear a little bit around sort of dyslexia and business owners and things like that. So there was a little bit of kind of crossover there, but not very much at all. And that then led into sort of trying to sort of support my daughter and work out, okay, I've got to learn a whole lot about this. It's not the stereotypes that I thought I knew, and all of those things. So trying to unpack all of that. And at the same time, my business was as a HR consultancy. And so increasingly awareness is coming about. And I guess in the same time as we're finding more awareness around my daughter, and then you figure out that all those years I've been saying, oh, she's just like me. Well, yeah, she is. It's inherited. And so you start to realize that actually, yep, it's me too. And then you start to realize that actually people are talking about this in the workplace and more questions are coming up. I was doing a lot of management training and more questions were coming up. And I'm thinking, well, that relates to what I do at home. And then you're starting to think, well, actually, there's this big crossover because I'm learning to give her better instructions at home. And you're saying, well, actually, we should be implying this in the workplace, which professionally led me to getting a postgraduate certificate in neurodiversity and qualifying as a workplace needs assessor. And so I was using my work as an opportunity as well to learn. I was really fortunate that I was able to pull the two together and be able to learn this through my work as well as at home. And at home, we started off right in school, and I won't go hugely into my daughter's story because it is her story, but we did have a year where we were home educating, because fighting schools and everything else just got so exhausting for both of us. And actually for us that was worked out to be the best thing. And one of those things during that time was you start to put in place things around the home that change things. And when you're in the thick of it, you don't always think through exactly what you're doing. You're making these little changes, little tweaks, and every now and again you find a new problem and you realize the reason you found a new problem is because actually you've kind of solved the last one, and now you've got a bit of headspace. And it's that gradual process.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the workplace, I was sort of doing more management training, which then, with my qualification, led me to actually training HR teams in neurodiversity, and also as a workplace needs assessor. And that one specifically, I was working with neurodivergent individuals in the workplace, sitting down with them and saying, like, what are the challenges, and what can we put in place to make your work life easier? And in that, I was sort of between that and the training, I was getting a lot of comments around like, I need this at home. This is something that, like, I need this kind of support, these things in place at home. And then I was looking at what I was doing at home and thinking, well, yes, actually I've done a lot of these things. So these things that I'm recommending, so for example, having your desk set up so that the things you need to remember to do are visible to you. I've done some of those things for my daughter at home. I've done some of those things for myself at home. And then starting to think about executive function, and there's a whole lot of that we do at home. You probably use more of that at home than I do at work. I mean, at work I can pay a PA to get rid of a lot of the stuff for me, but at home I'm kind of stuck with the stuff I have to do. And it was all of those things together that made me realize that there was this gap, because when I was in that thick of it and trying to look for help and look for going to sort of talks and things like that, and I was starting to get to the point where it's like, I've been to all the talks, there's not really much more information coming, and I desperately wanted somebody to say, just do this, just try this. And there's been a few tiny snippets of those along the way that have made huge differences. And often it's just an offhand comment of somebody saying, well, have you tried giving your daughter paper to rip up, for example, was one that was like an offhand comment and actually really helpful. And so I was like, do you know what, that's what, if I hadn't have had to wait for these little odd bits here and there and work through trying to deal with this at work and put it all together, I can offer this to other people and say, look, actually, if somebody had just said this to me a few years ago, I'd have probably sped up a lot of the challenges I was dealing with. And that's what led to Your ADHD Home becoming a thing, to say, look, we can make changes at home. Actually, yes, school should be making changes for our children. And there's a lot of people talking about how we support kids in school, how we get EHCPs and all the rest of it. Workplaces, absolutely. And I still do that work with workplaces as well. But I think we also need to make sure our homes, both for us as neurodivergent parents and our neurodivergent children, our homes need to work for us, not meeting some society expectation of what our home should look like. They should really be working for us. And I think that's the core thing for me.
Yeah. It's a really difficult sort of position to be in, because a lot of time you are on your own and you've got no signposting, you have no idea where to go, who to ask, and what is the societal norm. If you haven't got lots of other children around you, friends have got children and things like that, you can't see and talk about it. And if you're kind of like sort of segregated, I guess, to a certain extent, and it's just your immediate family and one child or two children, and you've got nothing else to go by, you got to do something, but you just don't know what it is. So, I mean, it's good to have the information now. You've got that. How does it, for the people who don't know, how does it feel to be in that position when you've got no support, no direction, and you have to just try and just make it up or search for things yourself, and you're on your own?
There are times I have just been so broken, that feeling of being on your own, that for me as a lone parent, as in a situation where actually, for me, a lot of family around me were just saying, just do this. You just need to put consequences in place. You just need to get control. That word "just," I hate it. And then the school were telling you that it's your fault. And I had this really kind of weird situation where I knew things needed to change. I knew I needed to change my parenting. And probably the first thing I realized I needed to change my parenting was reading a book which taught me about behavior as communication. And I couldn't believe, I mean, I got years into having my children before having learnt that statement. That should be the one thing we're told when we're pregnant, like, behavior is communication. And I had parented not knowing that or believing that. I look back with shame on how I parented in the early years. And I learnt that. And then the more I learnt, the more I changed. And then the more I changed, actually, the more the people around me got frustrated with me or didn't believe in me, because I was, instead of sort of doubling down and doing what they were telling me to do, I was going off in a different direction. So I was making the isolation was getting was getting stronger. There was more and more isolation the more I did things in a different way, and that's really hard, to the point where things had changed. Things were getting better. I could see things getting better. It was a bit 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but I could see things were getting better. And that was the point I ended up in therapy, not believing in myself as a mum, and just really believing I was a rubbish mum. I didn't know what I was doing, lost all my confidence at the time where I should, the signs around me should have been telling me to be confident, should have been telling me I did know what I was doing, or at least I was on the right path. But yeah, that isolation, that not having the people around you that believe in you, and often are really trying to tell you you're doing the wrong thing, is so hard, so hard to deal with.
It is. It is. I mean, they say, I mean, the old saying is it takes a village to raise a child. But for our ND children, the village tends to get very, very, very small very
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah. Watch your
Um,
village shrink when, yeah, yeah.
I mean, how important is it for people to have the correct information, the correct support, know where to go, and who to listen to? I mean, because we do our other research ourselves because we don't know what we're doing, and we've got to find out.
Yeah,
Well, this isn't working. I don't know at all what works. I have to try and find it from somewhere. I mean,
yeah.
how important is it for it to be nicely signposted so you know where to go?
It's absolutely vital. Like, we need, there's so much research now about child development, and so little of that information is easily accessible or shared with us. And a lot of the information that does get out there, I mean, I spent the years before having children, my sort of late teenage years, being entertained by Super Nanny on the TV. And so you go into parenting with those sorts of influences, as well as kind of the influences of how, like, my parents raised me, which obviously was in a completely different era with a whole lot less information available to them. But we've got all that information now. And as parents, whether we're neurodivergent parents or not, behaviourist communication applies to every single child. And it's, yeah, I don't think I'm the only one that was years into my parenting journey before I even heard that phrase. And I think that's, yeah, it's a really big thing that's lacking. When you're pregnant, there's loads hammered into you about breastfeeding and things like that, like the really
Yeah,
short. And it actually, you look back now and go, in the grand scheme of what I've gone through, that was not important. Like, that just was not an important part of the whole thing. Like, when there's so much information that could have been shared, and it's almost like it's forgotten when you have a baby that they're going to grow into a human, the human that's
yeah,
going to have their own personality and their own ways, their own needs, and all of that seems to kind of get forgotten. And I think, actually, yeah, I think we do need that shared with us, and it shouldn't be just an expectation that we somehow know from the way we were parented or the way we were treated, because actually that was a different time when information wasn't as freely available.
yeah. I mean, if you well, in our story, if we look back to everyone that we were told to speak to and made to speak to, not one of them understood. Not one of them came out with actually some good ideas,
Mm.
or something that, we haven't been trying for the last 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years religiously. No, none of that works.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, it's the society's kind of, or how the system's set up with, there is a stereotypical child, and anything that you need help with this so-called stereotypical child, you need to go to these people who know how to deal with a stereotypical child. But we
Yeah.
don't have stereotypical children, or no one really does have. How we approach things has changed over the years, but it's also, I mean, when you've got a neurotypical child who's happy, funny, and everything's great, lovely, lovely, lovely. And if they get angry for some reason, the parent isn't going to go, I'm going to chastise you. I'm going to tell you off. They're going to go, what's wrong? What we can do? What's happened? What's
Mm.
upset you? Straight away, it's like, oh. But for some reason, when it happens with us, those same people expect us to come down hard on our children without working
Yeah.
out what it is,
Yeah.
without working out why, and not trying to put anything into place. This has happened, so make sure it doesn't happen again by shouting and consequences, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't work. Why should
Yeah.
we have to do it differently? No, we need to know why. We know what we can
Yeah.
do, you know. And it's a very, very difficult for a lot of people. And when you're not in that situation, when you're not looking after children with ADHD, um, you just don't know. You don't understand how different the parenting style has to be. You
Yeah.
know, and it's all different, but it's very, very different for us. And it's very like for your child, it's going to be very different from ours because there's lots of things going on. So, but we have to be adaptable.
That's exactly it. And I think, I mean, even for sort of neurotypical children, and I think I've got one that's neurotypical. He's the odd one out in my family, so who knows? But we think he probably is. Um, but even then, the expectations on children are way higher. And that's one of the things that I've learned by more so with my daughter actually than my son, because you get that it gets pointed out to me, like she'll do something and then I might be like talking to somebody about it who's like, you do that too. And I might do it in a slightly more socially acceptable way. I'd say slightly more socially acceptable way, depending on who you are that's with me. But when I reflect on that and go, oh yeah, and then you think, actually, and why do I do it? When do I do it? What? And then you can start to get that empathy, and then you start to really think, well, why is our expectation that children won't react, won't get stressed, won't get angry? These are all healthy emotions to have, and these are all things that adults do. And actually, when you look, many adults don't have the ability to control and regulate their emotions, and yet we seem to look at children and expect them to, and then chastise parents who when a child doesn't, and the expectation is that somehow as parents we'll control our children's emotions out of them. And when you think of it like that, it's just a little bit crazy.
It is. It's like the old, it's like the parents slapping slapping the children, slapping them, saying stop crying, and slapping them, stop crying.
Yeah.
That is so obviously not going to work.
Yeah.
It's just it it's I think for a lot of people it gets to a point where it is insulting, I think, for other people to then come up and tell us how to parent our children, and teachers telling us how to parent our children. Um, be, because all the ways that they tell us how to parent our children, we've done for many years, and it has not worked. You know,
I
so we've had to change.
Yeah, I think that's the real thing as well, is when you're told how to parent your children with people that are not coming from an evidence-based things. There is so much evidence out there now. We can do evidence-based parenting. And when you look at it and say, I there is no qualification to go into parenting. Like, it's the toughest job I've done, but it's the only one I don't have any qualifications for. And you so learning how to parent, getting that advice, getting, like, for me, it didn't come naturally. I'm not somebody who like knew on day one just how to do it. It's something, and say I look back in absolute shame at my early years of parenting, and so I was crying out for people to tell me. I was asking for that support and that advice, but as you say, you end up asking the people who don't actually know themselves, and they are just parroting. And so, like, I had this expectation in the very early days that teachers, for example, that they work with children, they must know about child development. And then of course you realize that actually they don't. That's not their job, that's not their role, it's not what they're trained for. um And so it's that bit for me. For me, I wanted people to give me that guidance. Hence, I've gone out and looked for it and but I, yeah, wanted people to give an evidence-based guidance as opposed to uh, historic. Let's just keep repeating the old ways that we know don't work and yeah, claim kind of we know. And it's always that person that's been fortunate enough to get the lucky compliant child that seems to have all the wisdom about what we should do to make it work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as a parent myself, I completely gravitated towards the social norm. You know, I was I guess, a stay-at-home dad, and very much the very regimented. I mean, maybe it's my dad was in the Air Force, so there's military background, you know, discipline and rules and everything. So I put everything in place. Do this, or this is going to happen. Stop doing this, or this is going to happen. I always followed through. No second, third, fourth, fifth, 28th chances before I did something. I was there. I was on it all the time. That the leash was very short, you know, because that was the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Control your child, and all this kind of malarkey, and did it for years. And the school, they all agree. It's you put all these things in place, and it made
Mm.
everything worse. And as soon as the switch flipped for me, and I understood what I needed to do, I put those things in place, and everything completely changed overnight. Once I changed my direction, and we did things at, at home that were different, we stopped doing other things, and it made the biggest difference. Um,
Yeah.
so it needs to be done. You need to find out what works for you, and you know, the school that was at didn't like it, but you know, it's our children. They're at home
Yeah.
with us, and we need to make sure that they are happy and safe, and the parents are happy and safe as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we need that information, and we need to use it to ours and our children's advantage.
No, that's absolutely it. And you say our homes have to be our safe place for all of us. They should be the place that all of us feel the most comfortable, can be ourselves. And yeah, and there isn't a one right answer either because all our children are unique, we're all unique, and all of that's going to have to factor into what works in a particular situation. And I think that's crucial as well, is doing what works for us
Yeah,
as opposed to trying to fit some kind of rule or norm that people expect of us.
yeah. I mean, neurotypical children, they all kind of, it's all, this is how you do it. But we know as parents of ADHD kids or neurodivergent kids that, yes, they're neurodivergent and, might have the same condition or whatever it is, but we know it's not going to be the same.
Yeah,
That we're not going to turn around to each other and go, right, you need to do this and this and this because it worked for us.
yeah,
That's not how we know it's not the same. We know.
yeah.
Um, but it's quite shocking that although there is information out there, that is very hard to find.
It's very hard to find. It's very mixed in with information that is not so helpful.
Yeah,
Um, there's there's people coming at it from different points of view as well. I mean, I think one of the reasons why kind of the home and home setup is not thought about is because it doesn't fit into the NHS as kind of the medical piece. It doesn't fit into school, like the government kind of
yeah,
um, things that matter. Because ultimately, if a child behaves or misbehaves or in school, that has an impact that's visible. If these things happen in the home, then it's not visible. Nobody sees it. And I think that's the other thing that can feel really isolating is I'm dealing with this on my own. Nobody's seeing it. And often, especially if you've got a child that masks in school and you're being told, well, they're fine here. it must be you because they don't do this here, and all of those things. And then you've got someone else, you find a few professionals that do get it, and they're like, well, you're the safe parent, and that it's they feel safe, that's why they're doing it. And of course the people that have got the sort of comfort, I guess, of the kid masking, and the easy ride of the
Yeah.
child masking, that they're not going to get that or accept, or and it's all of those little battles that you're trying to fight all of the time. And that's why for me it was like, look, how do we make this so that I can reduce the battles at home? Because the one thing I was finding is like, I'm battling all these people, but I'm also battling my daughter, like, because half the time I'm trying to please other people and trying to tick the right boxes as a parent and all this. And when you can, the one battle I need to stop is the one between me and her. Like, that's got to be the one that makes things comfortable. And that was where it was like, right, how do I change up how we do things at home to be able to make that easier? And when you start to really understand, 'cause I think that's the other thing, is there's a lot talked about with ADHD around like the meltdowns and the misbehaving in class and all of those things. But things like executive function, that's talked about a lot in the workplace stuff. So when I'm over on LinkedIn and I'm talking to people about neurodiversity at work, executive function is like the top subject. Home and school, not at all. You barely hear that word being spoken about. And there's not it's and I guess it's because it's the bit that's underneath. So what we see is this child that's utterly frustrated, this child that's like having this reaction that don't get me wrong, it can be really hard to deal with. We don't see all of the bits that are going on under the surface that are leading up to the child getting there, or even our own struggles as well. So for me,
Yeah.
like, my own executive function struggles come into that as well. My own sensory challenges come into that. So you're trying to deal with all of those things as well. And it's only when you can really start to unpick them and see those challenges, I think, that we start to look at how can we do things a little bit differently, and how can we put scaffolding and support in place. Like, we're told to support our children. Well, let's understand that, as you say, let's not get angry with them because they're angry. Maybe they're right to be angry. And I think a lot of the time our neurodivergent children are right to be angry because of the way they're being treated. But instead of thinking about that moment, let's look at what is it that's making them angry? What is it that's going on for them? What are they experiencing? What are the challenges? Why do they come home from school absolutely exhausted? And it's once we sort of start to unpick those things, I think that's when we really get the key to kind of unlock and then teach them those skills, so that when they become adults,
Yeah.
they've got the skills that they need to manage, and the scaffolding around it, because this is going to be a challenge for them all of their lives.
And absolutely, absolutely, it's not going away. And depending on the age and what they do and the surroundings and all that, going from primary school to high school, going from high school to university,
Mm-hmm.
going to full-time job. There's lots of other things that can exacerbate the presentations of ADHD. Um, so to have an understanding of what you can put in place to support yourself, and how to communicate with others about the support that you need is crucial, and it needs to start at an early age.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
I got to 51 before I was diagnosed, 52, 53 before I had enough knowledge to start telling people what I need to support myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, it needs to start at an early age.
Yeah.
So what you're doing then, is this just for sort of new parents coming along, at the very beginning of their ADHD sort of journey, or is it as well for people who are, there are a few years and they're quite kind of seasoned in their journey? Can they get things out of it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody can. I think we're all constantly learning. I think, especially if you've got children, you're always going through a different season in their life. So you kind of figure something out and then they grow up a little bit more and then things change. So there's always that part as well, I think, that people, we're all dealing with as parents. But I think for all of us, whether you're completely new to this or whether it's you're much sort of, as you say, more seasoned, you kind of know what you're doing, but perhaps there's one area that's still not quite working for you. And I'd still put myself there, right? Like there's still things for me to learn. Like absolutely, I'm not putting myself in any kind of category of I've got all of this figured out. There's definitely still bits for me that I'm working on and looking at how do I put better things in place. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think you're going to get different things out of it, of course, and that's partly as well why I haven't tried to like create a system. Like there's a lot of like marketing speak and things out there that's like, oh, create like the 5-step like Jenefer process. Like I'm not going to do that because it's not going to work. Like as you said, we're dealing with unique individuals. All of our children's, even if it's just ADHD, they're all going to present differently, let alone putting in co-occurring conditions, life experience, like your lifestyle, all of those things are all going to come into the mix. So it's really around looking at what's causing a challenge, where is a challenge, and what can we look at to do things differently? How can we explore this in a different way? So, to give an example, if you've got, say, a child who's screens is perhaps a bit of an issue, you can tell that there might be times where they start watching TV and then they start to get a bit agitated and a bit. I'd be looking at that going, I think that child probably needs some movement. They probably need to be moving or doing something else. And I'm not anti-screens at all. There are other times I think they need that it's good for them just to be able to veg in front of the TV.
Yeah.
But maybe there's times where they're doing that and it's not necessarily the right thing. So maybe what we can do in those situations, I might be suggesting things like, is there ways we can get movement into so something that we've put in our lounge, we've got an indoor trampoline, we've got yoga balls, as well as kind of fidget toys and things, but those bits of movement allow for movement whilst watching the TV, and that they're visible, so they don't get put away. They are there in the eyesight. There's a visual cue that, oh, there's a way I can move really quickly and easily without having to do very much. I can just start moving, and that itself was really useful. Another one that I put in for us was a craft corner. Again, really visible, all the craft materials out and visible. If you've got a demand avoidant child, for example, you may find that suggesting to them that they do craft or suggesting that they move is not going to be it's not going to go down very well. Whereas and in fact, even if they're watching their favorite TV program and you suddenly start to say, well, let's do some craft, like it's not going to go down very well. But if you've got it there and visible and it's literally, oh, there's the paper, I can just grab the paper and grab the pen and I can get started. You might not want to put the paints right there. You might want to have your clean craft bits there and things, but you've got things that they can literally get hold of and use there and then. It's visual cues that makes them think and inspires them to move. And that, I mean, that was just two of the things that we put in place that made a huge difference to reducing the times where screens actually were becoming a negative,
Yeah.
because it's not always possible for me to know as a parent, does my child need to just be vegging for hours on the TV and just shut down, or do they need a bit of movement? And this way they've got that freedom to access and things themselves. So those are the sorts of things that I sort of work with putting in place for people, and also the sort of things that again might change. So you might find this works for a few years and all of a sudden you're in this, I don't know what to do now because it stopped working, and then I might be able to come in and sort of look at some new ideas and refresh it and things like that with somebody. So there's different ways of working with people depending on where they're at, but also looking at, well, what's the challenge you're facing in your family, in your home, and what can we put in place to try and help overcome that.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Because we all very, very different, and obviously as they get older and the development is further along, and so things will change as you go along. And I always kind of tell people, though I can't get really specific into everything because I don't know, I'm still learning myself, but all the information, all the ideas that people give you, I mean, most of them are not going to work for you, but don't discard them completely. Bag them, put them to one side, because they're going to come to a point, a situation, or an age, or a part of their development. They're going to go, actually, no, that might work now, where it
Yeah.
didn't work before. Star charts. My son, not getting too specific into it, but did not work at school with him and at home. We're told to put all that in, start, reward charts. No, 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 no. It did not work. Did not work for years. Works now,
Right. Yeah.
but for years it didn't work. So things
Mm.
can change. So don't
Yeah.
disregard things completely. Put them to one on the back burner. So when you're going,
Yeah.
oh, nothing's working anymore, you've got things to pull from. Let's try
Yeah.
this. Let's try that.
Well, I find you need like a toolkit often,
Yeah.
of because like even things might work one day that don't work another day.
Yeah.
And I find that it's just, as you say, having all those ideas in your back pocket that you can just pull out and keep working out, right, which one's going to work today, which one, where do we go, and yeah, especially for children as they grow. But even myself as an adult, I have systems in place for how I organise my work, how I manage what I do. Every now and again, they fall apart, and that doesn't work. My normal ways, I've got a certain type of planner that I'm like, I have to organize my work at the beginning of the week, but times that I'll just get so overwhelmed it falls apart, and I have to just go, right, can't even open the planner this week. I'm going to use a scrap of paper, whiteboard, something else, or I've got to go into like an emergency thing of like trying to work out how I deal with it. Doesn't mean the planner doesn't work anymore. It will do. I'll come back to it, and I have one that doesn't have the dates written in, so I don't get any kind of like guilt of sort of missing or anything like that. So I use something that works for me, and in that. But sometimes there is that thing of going, yeah, I just have to accept every now and again it's just not going to work. It's going to stop working, but not to throw the whole thing out, as you say, to keep that idea, because it does come back to work again, that particular one for me. And there might be other people other times where it's like, actually, no, I've just got to change what I do now for this part of my life, or the way I do things, the work I'm doing has changed, and therefore I've got to change the way I do things, or different technology comes about that makes go, oh, actually, that can help me even more than my previous. There's lots of things changing all the time, and I think it is important that we're thinking about that and reflecting and looking at, well, what can we use, what can help us. And the fortunate thing is there's a lot of ideas and tools out there. It's just getting it in the one place so we can find it.
Yeah. It's almost like, and I've just thought of this, or just realised this, I should say. Um, when you have a baby and they are a baby, they're 6 months old, whatever, 5 months old, um, and at that age, all of us, no one knows what they're doing. Okay, everybody's struggling. But when a baby cries, you automatically have that list. Right? Are they hungry? Do I need to change them? Are they cold? Are they too hot? Are they,
Yeah,
you go through that list and, oh, they're not eating. Oh, okay, let's check. So you do all those things, but we tend to like forget that
yes,
as they get older. We need to
yeah,
bring that back and have that, that list to go through when
yeah,
they are struggling. Okay, could it be this? Shall I try that? No, that doesn't work. Let's try that now. Let's try this.
yeah.
But keep adding to it as well. So I think that's what we need to kind of like go back to.
No, absolutely. And there seems to come a point where you kind of just expect your child to be able to tell you what they want. But again, I look at myself as an adult and go, there's certain days where I'm not very good at telling people what I want or why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And in fact, some days it is, I don't know the way I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And so to expect that my child, and that when we seem to expect this from kind of toddler years, as you say, you're right about that list we've got in our heads, which everybody accepts is okay when they're a baby, but suddenly it goes out the window very, very quickly. And it's again a little bit crazy that we think that somehow they'll suddenly, oh, they've got some words now, they'll be able to put words to exactly what they're feeling, exactly what they need at each time. And yeah, it it's nuts.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that list is a good one to to sort of think back to.
Yeah. I mean, I look at myself, and I desperately need our son to tell me exactly what is on his mind and what he's struggling with and things like that. Um, because I'm guessing all the time, and that's really hard for my executive
Yeah.
function
Yeah.
to it's really overwhelming to try and think all the time for me. And like, why can't you just tell me? And it's like, well, okay, let's think of this logically. Well, he's that age, and this is what he struggles with. And I couldn't tell anyone anything until I was 51. So you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that I shouldn't have that expectation at all. So I'm bringing myself away from that. Because it took me decades before I could, find the words, you
Yeah.
know. So again, it goes back to, the children and the support and everything to help them
Mm.
find the words. So
Yeah.
if they are struggling with the words, they can't tell you, you want to start putting things into place that they can find the words and can put things together and go, actually, this is how I'm feeling and this is the support I need.
It's
Which,
also why you say that support for parents is so important.
yeah,
And that's another thing about what I do. It's not all about what does the child need. Sometimes it's what do we need as parents. Because as you say, that executive function strain of trying to guess what's going on for a child or trying to go through, well, what sort of making decisions about what is it I need to be doing, and like how do I react to this, how do I respond, what, all of those things are putting strain on us. And that's not to mention the executive function strain of just having a child, like the school
yeah,
system, like the letters they send home and the apps you have to be a part of and the dates you have to remember, let alone paying the bills and getting the shopping in, and like all of that is on our executive function. That's all for many of us the hardest things that we deal with, and it's we're trying to manage that every day, and children won't hesitate to tell you when you get it wrong. So you forget their favourite snack on the shopping and you know about it. Like they're not going to be that forgiving of you. And so I mean I try and talk about my executive function and try and talk about how like I'm not perfect and things like that. But yeah, even that can be exhausting at times when you're being reminded that you got it wrong again. You missed the deadline of this or you did that, and yeah, it can be really exhausting.
yeah. It's a family unit, and you've got to look at if you've got a neurodivergent child, whether you're neurodivergent yourself or not, you're going to have your own struggles. You're going to have things
Yeah.
that you are really have no clue about, and it gives you a real hard day. It sometimes you just fail throughout the whole of the day, you know. So you need to be able to look after yourself as well.
Yeah.
And like yourself, I ended up going to therapy because I didn't know what on earth was going on in my head, because this was not normal for me to be feeling and acting this way, because I just now I know I get so overwhelmed. I get this sensory overload that I get as well, and trying to deal with a lot of things in one moment, you know,
Yeah.
school run, something like
Yeah.
that, is just so overwhelming for me. Um, so I've learned that in a nutshell, really, I've had to put things in place for me. I've had to treat myself as the most important person to enable to treat my family as the most important people,
Yeah.
because I had nothing to give. I had nothing to give. So I've had to do things for me to make sure that I'm okay so I can be there and give a lot more than I could have given before, and it's important that parents do that. They've got to look after themselves as well.
Absolutely. Probably one of the biggest mistakes most of us make as parents, I suspect, of thinking of not putting ourselves first, or you feel guilty because you've given yourself a moment, or you've treated yourself or things like that. But actually, as you say, we've got to look after ourselves, because that's when you notice, like, if you're feeling a bit stressed, it rubs off on your child. And I mean, I've had the therapist to go, You just need to make sure that they can't tell that you're like, I'm human. Like,
Yeah.
I can't be the only human that finds it really hard to hide when I'm really stressed. And yes, of course, we shouldn't but there are times you can just tell, can't you, that the people around you, and there's times where we're dealing with things as adults like that are stressful. We can't take that out of our lives. There's going to be times when, and yeah, if the I notice definitely for me the change in who I am as a mum in those situations if I've not done enough to transition out of work, or try and deal with a stress that I'm dealing with, or not giving myself enough of a break and I've got exhausted and things. And I think we have to, as parents, put that first, because it does have an impact, and we can't be perfect, but it's trying to doing everything we can to keep ourselves regulated is
Yeah.
absolutely crucial.
Yeah. I mean, I went back to working part time, but in a job that is not really me, um, purely and utterly because I don't really have to think when I'm doing it. My job before used to sort of manage health clubs and personal training, and a lot of hours, a lot of thinking, a lot of research. If I went back to that, I'd have nothing at home, and home is more important. So so I do a job that I don't have to think about. I've got no responsibility, nothing like that at all. So when I come back from work, I can still function at home,
Yeah.
and I've done that on purpose because I know I'd have nothing to give. Um, I do things. I wear headphones a lot and I listen to rain a lot, to help me, and that helps to calm me. Um, I come away. I do a lot of research to try and work on myself because I need to, because medication as well will work really well for me, but it wears off. So
Yeah.
so I'm trying to work on what do I do in the evenings, what things I can do in the evenings that keep helping me, because it makes a massive difference. I mean, I
Yeah.
did all the research. I to work out what our son's struggle was all about, and I pushed for the assessments and everything like that. um so I know about my son. I am there. I am completely on board about our son. No one knows my son better than me in regards to the autism and the ADHD and everything. Um, but I struggle more than anybody with it all. As
Mm.
in, not getting my head around it. Thing. I don't mean that, but the stress and everything, it affects me. So
Yeah.
I'm getting triggered. I'm overloaded all the time, and so although I know everything about my son, if I don't work on myself,
Yeah.
I'm useless. There's no
Yeah.
point. I can tell everyone else what to do,
Yeah.
but I need to be able to do it myself.
Yes.
So I have to work on myself to be able to, walk the
Yeah.
walk, not just, not just talk the talk.
Absolutely. But I think as well, a lot of our time, our children learn from modeling. And like see people sort of like, how do we teach our children executive function? And think you might sort of get those questions come up, and it's like, well, yes, we have to teach it, and a lot of that's going to be scaffolding and things. But actually, uh, how often do we sit down our children and teach them life things? You find ways to get it into everyday life, don't you? So you find ways to get them to experience it. So if they experience a house where there's scaffolding, there's things in place, things are that they're picking that up. We're modeling, we're teaching, and that, I think that's something to remember as well. That actually, when we're doing these things for us, our children see it. They might not see it in the moment. They might not, you might not think it, but certainly when they get older, when they're managing their own homes and things like that, they're going to be reflecting back. And when they see that actually this is normal, I mean, I try and normalize language around executive function and sensory challenges and things like that, and being able to say, yeah, I struggle with that. Actually, I don't understand what you just said, or I zoned out, I'm sorry. And trying to normalize some of those things as well, so that you can advocate for yourself. You can ask for support, like just being able to say, I'm overwhelmed right now. I need a bit of quiet. I need just give me 10 minutes in a dark room and then I'll come back to you, and normalizing those behaviors. And I think all of that modeling is really important, as well as being good for us. I think it's actually it's good for our children as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think they might not pick it up straight away, kind of thing, but it's weeks, months, years down the line.
Yeah.
They're going to be with us for a while, so we want
Yep.
to,
Yep.
so we need to. It's like just chipping away at the iceberg kind of thing. It will come, it will catch on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Your kid didn't use a knife and fork straight away, did they?
Yep.
So, um, so it's really important. And all the things that you do, and I know we've kind of touched on it. They're not expected to work all the time, are they? So it's things change, obviously, and their moods
Yep.
and what's triggered them and what they're struggling with changes as well.
I think things change, but also that's not a reason not to do it. So, like I say about my organisation system, the way I manage my work, my tasks, and I if I didn't have a system in place, it would be absolute nightmare. I mean, the biggest lie I tell myself and other people is that I will remember something. If they have not seen me write it down, then I will not remember it. But I lie to myself about this all the time and tell myself I remember. Why I think one day it will just happen, I don't know. But I have to have that system in place. So even though that system breaks down every now and again, it breaks down and it's no good to me, and I have to just find something else. I know that something else is not going to work long term. It's not structured enough. But there's times where I can't fit into the structure, and I'm too overwhelmed to even get it into the structure. So I know that I need to move between the two when it's right for me, and I think that's really important, that we don't just throw something away. And I see this a lot when I'm supporting people in the workplace, and I'll put forward a suggestion, and they're like, oh, I tried that for a while and it was working. And then we talk about why they stopped, and often it is that moment where it stops working, but they don't go back to it. And I think if we've got something that's quite structured, we've got something in place, whether that is physically around our home, or whether it is, say, your to-do list and organisation at work. If you've got that thing in place that enables you to kind of come back easily, I think that's when you've kind of got a good system,
Yeah.
or you've got something that you can work from and iterate over time. And because life changes, and we do have to sort of change how we do things, and accept that sometimes things just don't quite go the way that they should be. Doesn't matter how good we are at organising ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. And like you said, if you got something that works as well, and it doesn't work one time, don't chuck it away.
Yeah.
My memory is my phone.
Right.
So everything I've got reminders going off all day, alarms going off all day, even the basic things. Take my medication, have lunch.
Yeah.
Just general things that I do every single day. It's exactly the same thing, but it's still in my phone. It's still got reminders.
Yeah.
But like you said, if my wife asks me something and I'm driving, I can't put it in my phone. So I'm now
Yes.
at the point is, please, when we get there, please can you remind me to put it in my phone straight away, because she knows now that if it's not on my phone, she hasn't told me anything.
Yeah.
So it is as simple as that. It has to go in my phone. But it, occasionally it does break down, and
Yeah.
all these apps are coming through now. I thought, oh, I do this new to do app and all this, and I downloaded it, had a look at it, and stuff like that. And then I thought to myself, why am I doing this? I'm gonna have to transfer all that information onto this new app. I've got to learn how to do the new app. I've got to then put everything into place and all reset everything. I'm like, that's a lot of heads work
Yeah.
that I don't have to do that. And there's going to be a lot of no. I just stick with what I know. Stick with what
Yeah.
works. What
Yeah.
works 95% of the time. I'll have that.
Yeah.
So
No.
it's
Yeah. For me, it's a paper planner. I do rely on my phone quite a lot as well. but I have to have a paper planner,
Yeah.
and that paper planner comes everywhere with me. But even that, like I can be, if I'm in the wrong room, I will literally come up with something. I need to go and write it down. By the time I've walked to it, I've forgotten what it is I need to write down. So there's always going to be time where it's never going to quite work. And
Yeah.
as you say, even the phone wouldn't solve that. There'll be times you don't have the phone to hand or you're driving and things. Um, but the best systems we can get is, it's always going to be better than nothing, even if there are times where it
Yeah.
doesn't quite go. And then also the support of people around you, as you say, asking people to sort of remind you, or sometimes I'll say to even my children, like, can you send me that on the WhatsApp? And then and just to try and make sure that I do actually get reminded of the things that I need to be doing.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big one. It's one of my learning things at the moment I'm trying to sort of work on, because very much now I'm telling people that this is what I'm doing, this is why I need to do this, and learning about myself and all that. But I'm like, well, I need them to help me as well. So I'm getting into that kind of that sort of headspace where I can go, right, okay, this is what I need from you. Okay.
Yeah,
If like say for the phone, if you're telling me to do something, we've got to do something, whatever it is, and you want me to remember it, okay, and you don't see me put it in my phone, you need to tell me to put it in my phone. You need to say, put it in your phone straight away.
yeah,
Okay. I need that from you so I can do that, because there are times when I don't put it in. So those things aren't going to happen. And we know that.
yeah,
So I need you to help me to make sure it's in the phone. Um, and just like anyone else, really, if you're struggling with something, you ask for help. And this is what we need to
yeah,
do as well. Just if I'm overstimulated, this is what I need from you. If I'm
yeah,
understimulated, this is what I need from you. If I want to be
yeah,
alone, I want to be alone.
yeah, yeah.
um, but yes, yeah. So it's do you all the things that you put in place, and that's on your site and all that. Do you then are they aimed just at the kids, or are you aiming at the parents as well?
The parents as well, and
Yeah.
actually a lot of it is about parents.
Okay.
So because I I think, a as we've talked about, if we are in a good place, then we're going to be in a better place to support our children. So there are things that there are certainly things for the children that I spoke about. There are things like sort of putting in place things for movement and things like that. Helping if you've got a situation like a child's struggling to tidy their bedroom, we can look at, okay, what's their bedroom organisation like? How can we make it easier for them? Those sorts of things. But also, when you're trying to get out the door in the morning, if you're finding yourself sort of running in and out the house kind of 50 times before you actually drive away, how do we make sure that everything that you need is by the front door and visible? And some of them are mixed things, like if we know that PE kits are going to cause a struggle, have we got something stuck on the wall that tells us exactly what days we need PE kits? And is that by the front door? Because that's where we need to see that actually have we got the PE kits today. One things I stopped doing was putting the PE kits back away in the bedrooms. Like, it was the expectation to me, all PE kits or clothes, they go away. Well, no, they need to be in a bag every week. Why do we know? We keep they stay by the front door. They get long. I wash them. They go back by the front door, so they're ready to go back in the bag. And so it's those sorts of things. There's a lot of it is for both parents and children, because also if we put those structures in place when the children are young, as they get older, they get used to those structures, and therefore those structures they can start to pick up, so that now the kids know where the PE kit is, right? So they can put it in the bags themselves and things. So you can gradually transition the, that over as well. Things like how your kitchen's organised to make sure that you can make lunches and breakfasts and things easily in the morning. All of these things take pressure off of us as parents. Um, and yeah, in fact, for anybody, we could be looking at anybody who's saying, actually, I'm struggling with this in the home, I'm struggling to maintain organization, or I've got this clutter that is just making my head, like, I can't focus because we've got clutter all over the place. I can't get it organized, I can't work it out, I've got doom piles everywhere. Okay, what can we do about that? How can we put sort of supports and structures in place? So it's for the whole family. It's for anybody that is looking at how do I just make my life run a little bit smoother so that I can come home and just feel lighter instead of walking into the house and just feeling like, oh, I've now got to try and manage all of these things. Our home should sort of make us feel a bit lighter. It should be where we can recharge. And when we've got that, and that's going to need supports like for everybody, to enable that to happen, to make sure the home is working for everybody. And in some of those cases, that's going to be, how do we make the home work for people who like different things? So somebody who likes everything in sight, or doesn't just like it in sight, they need it in sight because otherwise they'll forget it. And you've got somebody else who doesn't like clutter, who likes everything tidied away neatly. We're going to need a different solution in that household than we are perhaps in a household where there's not that conflict of what people need. So yeah, it's really looking at what's the challenge, what are you doing right now, what's working, what's not working, and how can we fix it, put things in place that are actually as close to what you're doing right now, because trying to massively change things is going to
Yeah.
be really hard for anybody. So we're trying to put things in place that are like, how do we keep this as close to what you're doing right now, but make it just work a little bit better for you? And that's when it's most likely to work, not some radical, oh, just completely change up what you're doing, because that's going to be overwhelming in itself. We're unlikely to remember, it's unlikely to stick. It's got to be focused on what's your habits now, and how can we just make those work a little bit better for you.
Yeah, it's sweet. I mean, for people listening to this and they've heard some, some of the ideas that you've given, and they might be going, oh, we've put a poster on the wall, and and I've got a little a planner that I take with me, and it never works. It's not about doing that. It's about tweaking things and making
Yeah.
it work for you. I can't
Yes.
go from going putting everything in my phone to a manual planner. It's
Yeah.
not happening. It's not happening. And I
And
know,
I couldn't go the other way.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is it. And I know
Yep.
this really works for me on the phone because I know, and I don't know why I do this. My phone goes everywhere with me.
Right. Yep.
Everywhere. I go to a different room, my phone goes with me. And I don't know why. I've done it before we had children. No clue.
Mm.
But because I do that, I've no fear of losing the phone or dropping the phone
Yep.
and breaking it and all that. No, my phone is, it's glued to my hip.
Yep.
So having something that I have to then get, pen and the paper and all that, that's a massive it's just, no, that's too much
Yeah.
of a change. So it's just tweaking things,
Exactly.
to make it work for you, and whatever your situation is and however you deal with things, it's making it more, well, geared for you in your mind.
That's exactly it. And I certainly don't expect anybody to listen to all my ideas and go, oh, I have every single one of them. They're all perfect, because they're not going to be. And in fact, I share things that wouldn't work for me because I know that they work for other people. And that's the thing. It's about, as you say, what works for you. And it's about taking the bits that work for you. And if I'm working one-to-one with somebody, then I'm going to be really looking at that with somebody. I'm not going to try and change what they do. So I wouldn't definitely not say to somebody who's reliant on their phone like you are, oh, you need a paper planner. You just would not do that.
Okay, then. So it's a really good thing that you're doing. I haven't seen that being done by sort of anyone else in this sort of context. And I think it's really important that people have a look. Come and visit your site. Have a look what you have to offer. Because it can make a massive difference. And like you said about those little changes, they
Yeah,
all add up. They all add up. I don't think we've made in our household many big changes. There's just been little changes, and they've made a huge difference. Um,
yeah,
but you've got to learn it, you've got to understand it, and everything, and find that information out. So, okay, so really, really interesting what you're doing, and I hope you get a lot of people signposted to your site to have a look and see what you have to offer, and to improve their lives, improve their household,
yeah,
improve the lives of the whole family as a unit.
yeah.
Um, but I will share everything, all your details on the on the podcast. There you go. I can't get my words out.
Thank you.
On the podcast, so they can contact you, have a look, follow you, so they can just have a look at your journey and the posts you put out. Um, I'll put that all down there for you. And I will be watching. I will be watching with a lot of interest to see how that goes, and I think it'll be nice if we can get you back on at another point to see where
Happy.
you are further down that sort of that journey. And I'll share your website and all that as well, because we need that. It's like, so we the more we start sharing with each other the information and things like that, the easier it's going to be for people to be able to get the information, and the
Yeah.
right information as well, which is crucial. Um, okay, well, again, thank you very much for coming on, Jenefer. It's been lovely having you on.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it, and I'd certainly be
Good.
happy to come back and chat again. It's been good to chat.
It has been. It absolutely has been. But for now, guys, as always, be good, be kind, and remember, you're not alone. Thank you.
Thank you.